Good morning and aloha again. Some of you were at breakfast this morning. We had a great overview on what the Coast Guard's doing in this region. Really fits right into coalition interoperability, quite frankly. But that was a wonderful presentation, and we'll carry it on from there this morning. I'm Mike Warlick, Vice President for Defense for AFCEA International, and I'm representing both the chapter here in Hawaii and our international is a part of this. What I want to do is review what we've done up to this point. And before I say that, there's a couple sessions where there are education credits, and there's a scanner in the back of the room, and all you have to do is take your badge back there and scan it, and it's on a timer, so you've got about 15 minutes after the session to get scanned. If you try to scan early, it won't accept it until a certain time because it's set for 60 minutes, just so you know that. And that goes for any other session that you attend here. These scanners work really well and take care of the credits for you as you go through. Questions asked like we did yesterday. For those of you that were here, we've got mics in the center. If you've got a great command voice, you can state where it is, but we want to make sure everybody can hear the question. Normally we take them by text message or email, but this forum, it works better, I think, if it's kind of a face-to-face Q&A session. So let's look at what we did yesterday. We kicked off the day yesterday with Lieutenant General Shea, who made some welcome remarks on behalf of AFCEA International. Jeff Bloom came up and gave an overview of the CI Forum, where it has been and where it is now, and a little bit about where it's going in the future. More about that, I'm sure, before we leave. Then we had Major General Skinner, who's the new director for C4 Indo-Pacific. Been here, I think he said 31 days yesterday, maybe 32 today. But he gave a great overview of what his basic plan is and vision, and a look at some of the C4 challenges. He didn't want to step too far out there yet because he's still formulating, where he wants to go. But he does like the concept of the CI Forum, and I expect we'll see more of that as he gets further into his seat. He recognizes there's some spectrum issues out there as well as domain challenges, and how the CI Forum can achieve the goals that he has and maybe that the region has for better interoperability and coordination and so forth. Sharon Woods followed that, the program manager for DoD Cloud Computing Program Office, and she gave a fantastic overview on the JEDI program and how it will improve the DoD cloud operations. That was probably one of the top sessions in terms of impact that's going to, as a result of that contract award, and the time it's going to take to implement as well. Other speakers yesterday included Dr. Marion Bird, a professor at the Asia Pacific Center for Security Studies, who talked about how to build relationships, the sensitivities of culture, and so forth. Very important for us and for others that look at us being Americans, on how we can better communicate and build relationships and friendships as well. Raheem Perky, I pronounced that wrong, I'm sure, provided a great overview of the evolution of federation and coalition interoperability. He's going to moderate a panel here a little bit later. And Joe Carson provided an overview on the origin of blockchain, using Estonia as the example. Another one of the highlights of yesterday, because he ran into the challenges that Estonia has met in the breakup from the Soviet Union, number one, but the fact that they were probably instrumental in the blockchain development, and he gave a timeline and some of the scenarios that they have gone through to get to where they are today and the things that they're even doing today. That was a great session as well. So with that, we look to another great day for the CI Forum. And what I'm going to do is invite Dick Palmario to come up, and he'll introduce our first speaker, and off we'll go.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Dick Palmario. I'm the Board of Directors for AFCEA Hawaii. And my distinct pleasure today to introduce the first speaker of the day. He's an old friend of mine. We followed each other a couple of times through the years. And I retired recently, and he went up and took over some of the responsibilities that I used to have, and he's doing great work up there. So let me introduce Colonel Glen Genove. He's currently the Deputy CIO and Chief C4 Strategy Integrations Resources and Requirements Division. Sounds like a mouthful, and there's a lot of work there. So, but he's a person of interest to all of you in terms of what he says today, the questions that you can have for him today, and then some follow-on conversation. I think you'll find it very valuable. Colonel Genove is responsible for C4 support across the largest regional combat command enabling joint and coalition operations. In this capacity, he leads USINDOPACOM's digital strategy, technology roadmap, C4 resourcing, and requirements program supporting the 375,000 joint warfighters at the headquarters, four component commands, 4 subunifieds, and all joint task forces. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce Colonel Genove. Please give him a good round of applause.
Hey, well, aloha and good morning, everyone. Again, Dick, thanks again for that warm welcome. You know, if you really want to be a person of interest in being categorized or characterized as such, that's the way you want to do it, not some other, let's say, nefarious way. But again, it's been a great first day thus far. I know we've discussed the various topics and issues surrounding this space yesterday, and we will continue to have a even greater discussion of not only the challenges, but the opportunities for the rest of the conference. So my purpose to be the first speaker today is to really just set the stage and frame the discussion for future consideration. Like I said, there's a lot of opportunities, a lot of challenges, but I think over time, as we work together as a team, government, military, academia, industry, and others, we will collectively outweigh, if you will, those challenges with all of the opportunities that we will leverage over time. So, as discussed earlier, there was a lot of good topics discussed in the session both yesterday morning and afternoon, not only in this room, but throughout the property here, not only on the coalition side, but also the AFNet, TechNet. I always say, I'm an Air Force person through and through. I bleed the Air Force blue, so again, sorry about the slip, but the TechNet for AFCEA, a lot of opportunities for training, a lot of opportunities for networking, a lot of opportunities to meet new people and folks that we have worked and dealt with in the past, and this is always a great home week kind of endeavor. But one of the biggest things that I've learned over the many years that I've been in the service, 26 years, we are in the tech business, IT, comm, cyber, whatever you want to call it, AI, ML, etc. But really, along with the technology, what I've found most important is the people. And it is through people that we get the problems understood, framed, and solutioned for the better of all. And along with the people, there's processes involved that we have to leverage, work through, change, and all the rest of it. So really, it's all about people, processes, and technology overall. And while I said earlier, yes, there are many challenges, as illustrated by many speakers yesterday, to include General Skinner, Captain Pittman, Admiral Davidson, and others. There are huge opportunities, and as you see in the various exhibit areas, talking and hearing from our speakers, and just working and conversing with one another, there's a lot of ways to get at this interoperability problem set, especially from a coalition, allied partner, perspective, to look at many options, to look at many potential solutions, and figuring out what is the best for us as a collective team. So today, we focus more on the how. Yesterday was really the why and what, setting the stage. But today is really on the how of getting at this problem set. So as discussed earlier, following me, we'll have a panel discussing how we reach coalition federation, and then later on, we'll have a further discussion on understanding international agreements and standards, and finally, today, we'll finish up with a discussion on trusted identity exchange and spectrum standards, just in this room, and realizing that there's other things going on throughout the day. And tomorrow, we'll wrap up the conference with a coalition panel with a lot of representation from many of our partner nations, and we'll focus on the way ahead, what can be done, what should be done, what needs to be done, effectively a call for action. So if I characterize the focus areas of this 3-day coalition forum, it's understanding the situation, the why and the what, how did we get here, where do we need to go, then the how, what kind of solutions do we have to go forward, and then finally, what is the way ahead, what is actionable that we can take back to our various work centers, leadership, and from not only the government side, INDOPACOM and others, but for you all in industry to understand what is the problem set and how do we best leverage our people, our processes, our technologies, our talents to coalesce to help us get at the most challenging interoperability problems we have. So with that, let me offer a vignette to really set the stage, not only to understand this better in a concrete manner, but also to help spur some thoughts in your minds as to what can be done and should be done. And afterwards, I welcome any questions and also solutions to some of the things I'll mention here today. So, imagine a natural disaster occurring somewhere in Southeast Asia. A huge earthquake has devastated the nation's transportation systems, utilities, and lines of communication, among other means of survival. An outpouring of support has been expressed throughout the world, and many nations, government agencies, NGOs, industry, and others are willing to help. You can kind of sense where I'm going here. You really don't know who the players are. There are the so-called usual suspects that go in, but you really don't know who the final combination will comprise of. So at this time is of the essence, and a multinational task force led by the disaster-stricken nation has been established, with the U.S. being a contributing nation. And U.S. means many things, and the way I look at it is not just the military, it's our AOR area of responsibility here. USINDOPACOM, our subordinate components, and other stakeholders within the DoD space have some type of vested interest. But we also have a larger government set of agencies. We also have our own NGOs. We have other organizations who may want to contribute in one way, shape, or form. Multiply that with the other entities involved. So with that, the player set, if you will, the number of stakeholders who are going to participate and who will have a need to communicate, interoperate, if you will, is vast, diverse, and probably changing over time as folks come into the team and leave after their job is done. Some folks will stay longer, some nations or organizations will stay throughout the entire endeavor, and of course the nation who is the victim, they live with it, they'll be there all the way through, and after all of the quote-unquote foreigners and others are gone. So along with the U.S., we have the U.S. allies and partners, both internal and external to this region. We have other government organizations, non-government organizations, industry, and oh, by the way, there could be an opportunity, not a challenge, here where maybe a competitor nation or nations need to or want to participate, since it's also in their backyard. Consider that. So from a communications perspective, interoperability perspective, just looking at the networks and infrastructure, we have military, we have government, we have agency, we have company networks, we have all of these people coming to bear resources down onto this problem set, and we have to figure out a way for them as communicators for them to interoperate to get the job done. So some questions that I'd like to pose to you all for consideration at this time include the following. What type of information needs to be shared? What type of information agreements, sharing agreements already exist between participating nations? What sharing agreements need to be established for the rest? And how could we expedite them? And lastly, how do the various entities interoperate? Do we stand up a new network? Do we designate an existing network to accept all players, or some other combination? So these are just some questions that come to mind. There are many more, I'm sure, that you can think of. But for this discussion, this is just some of the things to think about right now. So in this situation, there are several approaches to enable communications amongst the various players. For example, if you take a network-centric approach, this would require standing up some form of infrastructure to include the transmission systems, the compute and store, as well as the workstations, end-to-end, if you will, in terms of the information flow. So from an information sharing policy perspective, it would be relatively easy if the US was participating only with our bestest friends. And from history and other operations, you can see and think who those may be. However, such is not the case here. In fact, the US for this endeavor may need to operate, not only need to operate, but share operational data with potential, quote unquote, enemies of the future, if you will, or frenemies, so to speak. So, assuming that an information sharing policy is approved, well, how do we overcome the challenges of actually standing up a network? How do we actually get this done? Either, like I said earlier, standing up a new one, or designating an existing one, or even linking or federating various networks. So, because we have different nations, different organizations, inside and outside of our government, from other nations as well. And this operation, as you know, in many HADR, humanitarian assistance, disaster response operations, time is of the essence and may last just days or weeks, not months or years in some cases, at least for the initial response. So, is there another way to look at this, aside from a network-centric approach? Well, fortunately, yes, and this is kind of like the lead into some of the things that we in INDOPACOM and our subordinate components and other entities within our DoD are thinking about at this time. There are efforts underway to look at this problem set from more of a data-centric approach, where the focus is on protecting the data and information more so than the actual network itself. So in this construct, a so-called zero trust architecture or zero trust networking assumes that the network used is already compromised, and the type and level of information a user has access to is determined by their role in the organization, along with any applicable information sharing agreements. So in addition to zero trust, the ability for increased federation of the various networks or like networks to connect via a standardized gateway is also being explored. Some of you may have heard of the Multi-Partner Gateway Extended or MPGWX effort. INDOPACOM, along with DoD and a partner nation, is involved in this 2 to 3 year effort to look at what's in the art of the possible. And in this case, by standardizing the type of hardware and software used between, let's say, the US and a partner nation, system configurations and procedures, we hope that we can greatly improve the connectivity between networks, often nationally owned. When you think US-owned releasable systems to another partner partner nation's releasable systems, through better throughput and increased cybersecurity and situational awareness. many of you are well aware that there's many networks out there. And let's say, a country X wants to connect with us. Well, there are many ways that that country may utilize to connect with us, peering points, if you will. Multiply that with other nations in our coalitions and with our allies and partners, and you have tens, if not dozens or more, ways to connect. This effort looks at trying to standardize the way with which we connect. Effectively, it's almost like the standardizing and the road system, or standardizing the rail gauge for the railroad tracks. Right now, a non-technical analogy would be the way our nation connects with another nation is through a sidewalk, a two-lane highway, and a dirt road, and multiple others, sea as well as air. We are trying to limit or pare down the number of ways to connect, while at the same time increase the way we secure the network, have better situational awareness, as well as, in effect, increasing the throughput overall. So that is the hope, if you will, or the intent of this endeavor. So, with initiatives such as zero trust networking and multi-partner gateways, we hope to achieve what we call the multi-cloud agile virtual environment, or MCAVE. So in a nutshell, this is a cloud-based federation, cloud-based virtualization, and cloud-based cybersecurity. All of the hosting, the processing, dissemination in, through, and from the cloud. And with this environment, we aim to achieve fully networked command and control and communication services through the use of native cloud hardware, service orchestration, and automation to create actual self-configuring and self-healing networks. This effectively removes the man-in-the-loop currently necessary to reestablish mission enclaves upon cybersecurity incident or compromise, or standing up a new network for operations. From the cybersecurity perspective, this effort aims to implement privileged access management and zero trust architectures required to prevent security lapses caused by behavioral issues and misconfiguration, while automating STIG or configurations processes to ensure new networks are secure and compliant prior to operations. So effectively, it's a way to quickly stand up a network and be able to put in the rule sets in place and have the ability for others of many, from many areas, many countries, many sources, if you will, to join in and be able to leave as necessary. So what I've just outlined is not just science fiction. It is happening now. The technology is out there already. We in the government need to leverage it even more so. And I know there's many efforts at play already to get at this. So we need to continue to leverage this to the max extent possible and as soon as possible. Other combatant commands are involved in some type of effort to improve interoperability, and the Air Force, such as the Department of Defense's new executive agent for multi-partner environment, multi-partner networking, and the BICES programs, is working to synchronize, harmonize, and optimize interoperability across the joint and combined force. And with that, interoperability ultimately is going to be key here. Interoperability is a growth industry, and really the future is bright. And that's why we're all here this week. So overall, ultimately, my vision is the following. Going back to the vignette I discussed earlier, that we have the ability to stand up a community of interest or network of like-minded allies, partners, and others for a specific mission set, fast, with the rule sets in place based upon predetermined information sharing environments. It's not just connecting, but before we do any type of connection, we have to make sure we're very grounded in what we share, as well as ensuring that the right information gets to the right people, so that when a person logs into this environment, role-based access is granted, and based upon the number and types of players, restricts the type of information to the lowest level needed to accomplish the mission, as I mentioned earlier. So information is released to only those who are authorized, and with all of the network and federation and cybersecurity done in the cloud. So taking this to the tactical edge. So there's cloud to the edge, there's processing and all that. So we definitely need your support in identifying some of the key technologies as well as processes that we can leverage. And with that, upon the end of the mission, stand down this network and reset for the next event. So again, I want to say thank you to all of you for coming out here from far and near. This is going to be a great rest of the week. Had a great first day. We've got a lot of things going on today as well as tomorrow. And definitely, it's not just a receive mode kind of situation. We want to hear from you. We want dialogue as well from fellow government agencies as well as industry, academia, and others, because we do this as a team, and that's how we will be successful. So with that, again, good morning, aloha, and again, thank you for your support, and let's have a great rest of the week. Thank you.